Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I am Trevor Stack, and I appreciate your time here to come to this seminar on learning to teach your kids financial skills. And before we get started in too much detail, I want to thank Riley for having me here today and hosting this event and being able to reach you folks within the Nazarene organization and churches. And so to get started, I want to just explain that this seminar is to present for you using a couple of courses that I've created as a template for the things that I teach about financial management for children. My background is in business development and coaching. I coach volleyball at different levels through 6, 7 year olds all the way through college athletes. And so I have a perspective on how kids learn, and I have a perspective on how and what the importance of finances are through a business background. And so also part of that is that I'm an investor. I invest in real estate and have invested in a number of things over the year, different businesses and through stocks and all sorts of stuff, the normal things that the average person might invest in. And so I want to share my experience from those different lenses and how I think it translates for all parents in working with their kids. So this is my family, and this is a couple years old, this picture. And of course, that's me sitting there on I guess, my right. Not sure what it translates into your screen if it's flipped. And my wife beside me there, that's Debbie. And we've been married for nearly 30 years. And the herd behind us, well, we'll start in the middle with the tallest one. We'll go from oldest to youngest. So Jared is our tallest one there. He's now 23. He was probably 18, maybe, in that picture. And then there's my daughter on the far left. So that's Jared, by the way, if I didn't throw his name out there. Callie is on the far left there, and she is now 22. And she is a lifeguard. She's going to college, doing her education degree. And I'll just flip back. Jared is a police officer. And then on either side of Jared is, we refer to them lovingly as two boys. They are Logan and Brody. Brody is the far right. He now towers over his older brother. I think Jared was probably 5'11" in that picture. He's maybe 6 feet tall now, and Brody stands at around 6'2". And he's a construction guy right now. He's hoping to pursue policing as well, but he's doing his construction apprenticeship currently as he graduates college or high school and continues on. And Logan is our creative guy. He is everything: music, audio, video, photography, social media, and he'll be going on to college and doing that kind of stuff. And since we've thrown height into the matter, he's a little taller than his sister, a little shorter than me, taller than his mom, pardon me, taller than his sister, shorter than his brothers, taller than his mom. So, he's right in the middle there in his height and size. And Jared and I are basically the exact same height and build. He likes to say he's taller than me, but it's only because I'm shrinking. So that's the family. Now, why does the family matter? So my family is the key part of this whole program, and we've always taught our kids finances through different methods. And much like we do anything, right? We teach our kids how to cut the grass, pull weeds, load the dishwasher. We taught our kids about money, and I'll get a lot more into that. But my family has obviously changed through the years. You get married, there's just the two of you, you have a kid, you have another kid, and then two more pop up out of nowhere, and suddenly you've got a whole herd. And throughout this entire time, we've been teaching our kids work ethic and money and things of that nature. And so it's important to understand that if you have kids of any age, you might as well teach them about probably one of the most important things that they need to know about is how to handle money, how to earn money, how to spend money, how to save money, how to invest money, how to not waste money, to be good stewards of our money. And those are all lessons that are built into what I teach. And so how did we get to this point where I'm sitting in front of you? And so I'm going to just talk a little bit, tell a bit of a story as to what got me here. So we taught our kids about money their entire lives. My kids went from piggy banks to envelopes to a bank account at the bank, and then from there they went to investment accounts. Um, and because they've always been doing investments, then we move their money from one type of account or savings process to another, and we teach them how to earn money to some degree. And so when our kids get to a certain age, we take their money that they have saved that's just in a bank account and we move it into a high interest savings account. Now, we all know that that is a misnomer. There is no such thing as a high interest savings account at a bank. They still call it that. But, anyways, to teach our kids that there's a next step and a next step, we have them create and open a high interest savings account for their savings that they're going to be continue saving for a while for things like houses, cars, investments, until they're 18 and they're old enough to put that money into a trading account or something of that nature. And so Callie was about 12 or 13. Two boys were about 9. And Debbie did the trek to the bank with Callie and the boys in tow to open up Callie's high interest savings account. Now, she had been working as a babysitter, pet sitting. She helped out at dance. She did some daycare stuff at the church. And so she made her money sort of all over the place, and she worked hard and diligently, and she had fun doing it. Those are her kind of things, pets and little kids. And so that's what she does, and that's where she earns her money. She teaches lifeguarding, teaches swimming lessons to little kids, and she's doing her practicums at college for her education degree with grade 2, 3 split classes or grade 1, 2, 3 classes. So that's her thing. That's her gem. And so she was at the bank, and we typically have seen the same financial guy that's at the bank to open our kids' accounts and so forth. And sometimes renew our mortgages and stuff that we have there. And so they were in there at the bank, and they were doing the typical opening up the account and casual chit chat conversation. And that conversation sort of came around to the money that Callie had earned, because you have to have a certain dollar value to open up a high interest savings account, and you have to commit to keeping it there for a period of time, because you don't make the high interest if you take any of it out over a period of time. And so it came up a little bit about the work that she did, with her pet sitting and dance, instructing and different things, as well as the fact that she was saving this specific money for her car and for a house and for investments. And so he was a little bit interested in that. And as it would happen, and it happens often, chaos erupted, likely, I assume, from out of the office and in the waiting area, kind of out there. And it was two boys, I'm sure, and they were creating some sort of a ruckus. And his attention, financial guy, his attention was drawn out the door to them. And he commented, "You'll have to bring the boys in sometime to open up a bank account then." And my wife quite casually and quickly commented, "Oh no, they also have bank accounts already. They don't have the high interest savings account yet, but they have their bank accounts, and they already are working and earning money and saving for a car and a house and investments." So at this point, he was fairly taken back and not aghast, but sort of like, "Well, I'm a financial planner, and I don't do this with any of my kids. And so my kids don't know anything about money." Now, I don't know how old his kids were in comparison to mine. Mine at the time would have been from 15 to 9. So a fairly good range and quite young. And we'd been obviously doing it also for quite some period of time if the boys were already saving for those type of things. And so in that, he's like, "So I'm a financial planner." And I think in his mind, he was saying, "My kids should know more about money than your kids, but my kids don't know anything." And so he asked my wife, Debbie, to send him an email that sort of outlined a little bit about what we did to help our kids learn about money, and to have accumulated this amount of money by this age, and to be working towards these very specific goals of investments, of cars, of all the other multiple things that my kids were saving for at the time. And if you don't mind, I'm always going to sip on coffee. Keep the whistle wet. And so Debbie said, "Yes, I will definitely send you an email." And so she finished the appointment, and she went home, and she called me, and we had a conversation, and it kind of went, "Financial guy wants to know a little bit about what we do with the kids. And so could you send an email to me so that I can send it to him?" And I said, "No, he asked you." But anyways, she asked again, and I said, "Okay, listen, you write up an email, and I will start writing something. I'll find some time today to put something together, and I will send it to you. And then you can send him whatever it is that you want to from the mix. And so I did that at some point during the day. I started writing and I wrote a couple lines, paragraph, another paragraph. And at some point I sent her what I had. Sometime after that, I continued writing, and that became a chapter, a few chapters, and then it became a manuscript for a book. I'm just going to reach over here, sorry, and get my fisherman's friends. They also are a mainstay when I'm speaking. If you haven't heard my raspy voice, it is always that way. So the email went to financial guy, and I never heard from him again about it. I think he probably moved banks and so forth, and we've lost track of him. I never got any feedback from him as to, hey, that's some good ideas, I should do that, or if he started doing it, or if, like most other people, he continued on with his life and didn't teach his kids anything about money. I think that's pretty much the MO, the standard education process for money in North America. In North America, I think we like to send our kids off to college, create some debt, get an education out in the real world, get a job, spend, probably work a little bit too. And then when they hit 25 to 30 years of age and they're $30,000 in debt, then we come along and say, hey, we should teach you how to get out of debt. My preferred methodology is that we teach our kids how to never create debt. And so the book that I wrote ended up being a book, basically stories about my kids, in which I outlined and talked about some of the lessons that my kids learned. And that book has its own little life, what I'm doing with it. It will factor into the courses that I do. And I'm sure I will share chapters and so forth as people get to different levels and the stories are relevant. But that got me started. And sometime after that, I got a little bit busy. COVID hit. And so just coming back to why we're here today. So COVID hit, and I was working for a company. I was doing some consulting, and their business sort of went offline. And I was just about to get started working with them when COVID hit. So they began to pivot. Now, their business was not as financial education, business education. So teaching small businesses how to grow and run their businesses, how to do better marketing, how to do better sales, how to do better costing, all sorts of stuff. And so it was really a full business program, but they did it around a boardroom. You probably can't see, we're in a boardroom right now. This is the one side of the wall. I'm looking at a boardroom table here. So they like to do boardroom coaching, a little bit of private one-on-one meetings, and then some coursework and so forth for people to participate in. But with COVID, that was sort of shut down. There was no more group coaching times. There was very little opportunity to meet face-to-face one-on-one. And so he wanted to pivot his business, this gentleman, into going online. How do I translate my group coaching into online? And how do I, so we began to play and research on building courses online and podcasts and webinars and all that sort of stuff. So as we did that, it began to register with me that I could do this with financial education for parents to teach their kids how to learn about money. I toyed with the idea about it in the past, but there was never really the right medium or time to get into it. And so at that point, I continued to expand and learn everything I needed to know to develop courses and the technology behind it and the marketing behind it and the strategy behind creating webinars and the different events where people could come and participate. But I also like the model of learning something, practicing it, and then putting it to work, finding out where you fail, and then going back and having a chance to do it again. An apprenticeship program, so to speak, internship, whatever you want to call it. We do it with doctors and lawyers, and my son's doing it with his construction, with his journeyman carpentry. And so I really like that idea. As I coach sports, I know that I work with athletes for a week or two at a time, and then we do some technical training, we do some skill training, then we put it into a mock or practice game scenario, and then we play a game and we see if we win or lose, or what we do well, what we fail with, and then we go back to practice and we do it again. And so that's the model that I wanted to put together for course creation. And so that's what we're doing here. And so all the courses I develop have an education component, whether it's live like this or whether it's this as a recording. And you'll see some of that workbook space and so forth as well that I work through. So you have a chance to do some workbook exercises, a chance to do some group or teaching time where you can interact, and then a chance to actually take that homework and move it and put it into action. And so that's the courses that I developed. And so this is the introduction to what those courses might look like, and how I teach financial education to parents to help them translate it to their kids. And so whenever I talk about financial education for parents, money, that type of thing, I have a very specific concept in mind. And so my perspective is that parents need to be investing themselves into their kids to help develop a number of things beyond just money. And so that's positive self-worth, self-discipline, strong values, work ethic, focus. And we know focus is gone these days with swipe left, swipe left. Help our kids to have a drive and a focus, and be able to develop great financial skills starting now as they work towards becoming adults. And so my perspective is that it's never too early to start teaching our kids financial skills. And when I talk about teaching financial skills, and the line is at the bottom there, it's never too early to start teaching financial skills and habits to our kids. In sports and in life, habits typically, and most people don't recognize it, I don't think, but having positive habits is really the key. And so a lot of what I work on is and starting young. One of the reasons I want to start young is I don't want my kids to develop bad habits, and it takes time to develop good habits. And so I have a line that I use when I talk about it, and I say I want parents to be consistently and intentionally teaching their kids financial skills and habits. And so the intention and the consistency is really what matters, and that takes time to develop. Now, when I talk to parents and I present this as the model, this is what I think we should be trying to teach our kids, and that will create financial skills and wealth, teaching our kids all these other things. When I start talking about this with parents and I present this to them, a lot of times they will share with me that they really don't know enough to teach their kids finances. They don't know enough to teach their kids about investing. They don't know enough to teach their kids the things that they think financial management is all about. But I always come back to the question. I say, who should teach your children about money? Who should be shaping their thoughts and their actions, their spending, saving, and investing habits? It's all about habits. And the answer really should be your parents. Your mom and dad should be teaching kids about money. And a lot of times you'll hear parents say, well, there isn't a good economics class or home ec or financial or accounting or bookkeeping. Like there needs to be a course in school to teach our kids this stuff. I don't want the school to teach my kids about money, about finances, about work ethic, and those type of things. I definitely want to be the one teaching them about those things. So I ask parents, are you ready to do the job? And typically the answer is not really. Where to start? Okay. And so I liken it to puppies. When we bring a puppy home for the first day, we don't just take him and set him in the middle of the living room floor and put out a bowl of water and some food and just say, we have a puppy now, right? The first thing that's going to happen is that little puppy, after a drink of water or two, is going to squat down in the middle of the room, and we have our first mess. And so what typically happens is the first time that puppy squats down, somebody or everybody sprints towards that puppy and grabs him and picks him up, and they run to the safe zone, whether it's out the door and onto the grass, or whether it is, on a pad for peeing on. But we teach them where we want them to go pee, and we teach them it's not in the living room, it's not on the carpet. We also probably don't put their food and their drinks in the middle of the living room, so that's where they are when they're drinking, and so forth. But what we do is we start teaching our pets all the things we want them to know, where they can go. Don't bark. If you need to go outside, go to the door, or come and wiggle your nose up against me or something. We try and teach our puppies when to eat. This is meal time, and we want them to not bite and not chew our slippers. And so we begin molding and grooming these puppies to fit into our home life society, because we want them to be successful with our family. Now, the same is with our kids, right? We bring our kids home and, we play with them till they're old enough to kind of waddle and toddle and whatever, right? We tell them all sorts of stories and things of that nature. When they can toddle, we have a meal, we finish the meal, we might hand our little toddler a plastic cup and say, you walk over to the dishwasher and give that to mommy who's waiting, and she's going to put it in the dishwasher. And we watch little Tommy or Susie toddle over there and pass that cup over, and then they come toddling back to us for the next one, and that becomes a routine until they can take two, and then a stack of plates, and then by the time they can actually clear the table and wipe the table and load the dishwasher, they don't want to do it anymore, but they really, really want to do it when they're little. And so we want to teach them those things. We help them to learn, to put away their toys, and we help them to sweep the floor and maybe vacuum and maybe sort their laundry. You put all your white stuff in this pile, and they like to pull the towels out of the dryer when the load is done, because they're nice and warm and cuddly. And we integrate our kids into that and into our home life, but rarely do we integrate them early on into life. And so I will tell some stories about how we've done that with our kids, and share some more. So as I mentioned, this is sort of an opportunity for me to present to you, so you can see some of the things that I think are important to teach our kids and how I've taught my kids. And it's a breakdown of 3 different really short courses that in this case, they kind of come at financial education and parents teaching their children about finances from 3 different perspectives. So one is to reframe what teaching our kids financial skills, habits are. It talks about what is wealth creation. What's the goal? We want our kids to create wealth. What is wealth? I'm not talking about making multi-millionaires out of everybody, but I am talking about what wealth creation is and how we start it, how we begin it, and how that process works. The other one is getting started when our kids are young and early and now. What does that look like? And so we bomb through that really quick, and we'll do that. And then the next one is, what am I trying to teach my kids every day, every week, every month, from the time they're 3 or 4 or 5 years old till they're 23? That's as far along as I can talk about teaching my kids about money, because that's my oldest. And so I want to talk about getting started, how we transition, what are some of the steps, and practical things that you could do as a parent today to start teaching your kids about money. If you've taught them nothing about money up until now, whatever age they are, there's something you could do today to begin the process of intentionally and consistently teaching your children about money. And so here's the first one. The first course, I'm going to introduce 2, and then we'll begin the third one, and we'll come back to one of these 2 if we have a chance. Because I just want to give you a taste of how I've done it, what I've done, and what I've put together. So the first one is about getting started with our kids. And it doesn't really matter here what age they are, but what do you as a parent, because most parents that I've spoken to, most don't feel comfortable teaching their kids about money. So what do you need as a parent to get started teaching your kids about money, financial management today? And so you need to know what you know first off. And so I go through a whole list of that, and we'll get back to that. But really it is you can have had success or failure with money, and that has taught you something, and therefore you know something. That's the basics of it. Know what your kids know. If your kids know that there is a money tree, that if at the end of every week they get $20, or if they ask for $20, they get $20. If they know they don't have to take out the garbage and they still get their allowance. If they know that money is this fancy credit card, you just swipe it and you just tap it. You just take this thing out and wave it, and money appears. That they just give you things when you wave this thing. Do they see you go to work? Do they see you have a raise? Do they see you change jobs? What do they know about work? And then when we begin talking about our kids learning about money, where does the money come from? Are we giving our kids allowance? Are we just giving them money, or are they earning some money? And so then a short discussion, we can, and I share my perspective, but on which is the best method. What is better? Just giving your kids money, or giving them allowance and having some accountability to that, or helping them to learn to earn money. And then what to do with the money. Once our kids start earning money, do they just go out and spend it? Right. One of the things that we teach our kids early on here is, listen, you can't have those $200 Nike runners. I'm not paying $200 for a pair of Nikes. What do you think I am? Made of money. And so your kids know that you're not made of money because you've told them that enough times. But you've also added something to that line. You said, when you have your own money, you can buy those shoes. And so when your kids start earning money and they're 14 or 15 or 16, and they get a part-time job, and you come home one day and there's this pair of Nike shoes on the thing, and it says $270. And you're going, who bought those? What is that, a present for me? And they're like, no, these are my shoes, Dad. I bought them. And you're like, well, you bought those? Like, you spent $260 on a pair of runners? Are you crazy? And they say, Dad, you said when I earn my own money, I can buy what I want. That's what I want. And so now they have no money again, and they got to go work for another 2 or 3 weeks to make that money to do something else. But you've given them permission because you said, when you earn your own money, voila, you can have those $270 pair of Nike shoes. And so is that what they're learning? Right. And so what are they doing with their money once they start earning it? Or if you keep giving them money and they save it and stockpile it, are they saving up for that pair of runners with the money you're giving them? Okay. Second course, and that's just the quick outline. There's more parts to this. Okay. The next course is the real financial skills that your kids need. So I'm not talking about learning how to buy real estate. I'm not talking about trading Bitcoin or day trading. I'm not talking about an MLM. I'm not talking about running your own business. The skills that your kids need today, the financial habits that your kids need, right? That they need today, no matter what age they are, they need to begin developing strong financial habits. So the questions I ask in this course is, what do you understand about wealth creation as a parent, right? Are you thinking that I have to somehow invest in real estate, right? Buy real estate, buy now today, buy 100 units with other people's money. That's a big course that people taught for a while, probably still do. Do you have to trade Bitcoin to become wealthy? Is that what the goal is? Do you have to start Microsoft or Tesla to become wealthy? What is wealth for you in your world? So what do you understand about wealth creation? And then I want to reframe what financial education really is. It's not a course on trading Bitcoin. It's not a course on mining Bitcoin. It's not a course on buying real estate. And then how do we teach our kids financial skills? It's not a workbook. That's the first thing I want to preface. I can't just give you a workbook and say, okay, here's a 3-page workbook, a 20-page workbook. Here's a coloring book for your children. Here's an online video for you to watch for 20 minutes or put your kids in front of, and they are going to have financial skills. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way in anything. So it's not going to work that way. And you can find them. You can go out there and look, and there's little workbooks and little storybooks and little comic books and reading books teaching about financial education for your kids. Some of the times now, some of these celebrities that have tied themselves to other things have these cards, and they're spending cards. Basically, they're like a credit card or a bank card, more of a credit card, and they're teach your kids to spend responsibly, right? And so it talks about, you can transfer money into this account, and they can make little accounts. This money's for this money's for that. But what has happened is they've removed the fact that your kids need to learn to earn the money first, and then they need to learn to plan to save, because savings can take a long time. And then when they have enough money, they can spend it. But if you're just transferring money into their card, and they've got a card and they can now just go swipe and spend money, they're not learning financial management skills. They're just learning to spend. And that's what the bank wants your kids to learn to do now. And they want to rope you into that. And so Royal Bank has a card through another second company they bought called Mido. And that's just basically promoted by a celebrity, Brian Baumler, to say, listen, this is a great way to teach your kids to spend money. It really is the worst way to teach your kids to spend money. They'll figure out how to spend money. That's not a problem. And so then help your kids utilize the right financial tools to create wealth. And so that tool is the worst tool you can do for your kids. If you've enrolled in the Mido program through RBC, promoted by Brian Baumler, get out now. Get out while you can. And that's just one of several of those spending cards that are out there. It's just one that in Canada I've seen several times promoted online. The technology is great, applied and taught the right way. The tool is not the problem. The concept, the teaching behind it, or a lack of teaching behind it, is the problem. And so then the next course that I want to go through, and it's the one we're actually going to start with, and it's about creating habits to teach your kids to build wealth. And so this one is more focused on if you've got kids that are 6 or 8 or 10, that's a great time to start teaching your kids about money. And even earlier, you can go and begin teaching your kids about money when they're 3 or 4. But 3 things that I focus on. I've mentioned them in the other courses a little bit, but this is the beginning. The other 2 will preface you and prep you to understand where your headspace is at, and what you understand, or what you think you understand, or what you think you can or can't do based on your background. This one is the actual, let's start today. So creating the right financial habits is the first part. Okay. And we'll talk about what those are. They're different than what you think. Start early, start today. That's the biggest thing. No matter what age your kids, no matter what you're doing, you could start this afternoon, today, this morning, tomorrow night. You could start today to teach your kids about money. One intentional lesson, and consistently adding a lesson on top of a lesson on top of a lesson, or practicing that lesson over and over and over again, is the key. And then using the right financial tools. And I briefed about that, but we're going to go through some stories and talk a little bit about this. So when I talk about creating the right habits, the habits I'm talking, financial management skills and habits that I want my kids to learn, one is work ethic. If they can't earn money, if they can't go to work, stay at work for a full day, earn a paycheck, apply the skills that they're learning, develop more skills, take an interest in the job they have, they won't find any success in any area of financial management. So that makes the assumption that they're earning some money. And so now we talk about the shoes, the Nike shoes, delayed gratification. I want my kids to learn to plan saving their money for things they want and things they need. And planning for money takes different timelines. So I'll just get into a little bit. My kids, when they were young, started off with 2 things, tithing and fund money. And so my kids would earn a little bit of money, and I'll talk about that later. Let's say 25 cents. This is back a long ways ago. My kids are older than yours, likely. And I started teaching this a long time ago, 20 years ago. So I've been teaching my kids financial management skills for 20 years. And so when they would earn 25 cents, which is going to now be $2, I guess, they would take that money and they'd break it into, and I'll introduce this now, I'll get back to it later, but they would take 10 cents and they'd put it into their tithing money. This is their Jesus money, and I'll explain this later. I can't show it to the camera right now. Well, maybe I can. This here, if you can see it, which way am I going? Right there. There's a cross and a picture of a face on there. This is probably one of the youngest kids' ones. I used to have like 20 of these with different pictures on them. I'll explain it later. They're all gone, except for this one. I can't find anymore, which I'll explain later. And anyways, my kids would put 10 cents into their money for Sunday school. And then they would put the 25 cents into their fun money. Of course, these are Maxwell's Cafes. This is the Kahlua one, no longer made. It's the biggest tragedy on the planet. This is the best treat ever. I have hundreds of these. The money would get separated and put into a piggy bank. Now, in my children's world, this was their piggy bank. They had a picture on the front of it. We'll talk more about piggy banks later. And it was their piggy banks, and they separated the money. They didn't have one piggy bank. They didn't just have that little pink glass piggy bank jar that they stuffed all their money into. And then in the movies, they take their hammer and smash it on their bed, and all the money spills out, and they count it and go save the world with that $37 that they saved. But they would take the money and they would have fun money, and they would have church money. Fun money would typically be a Timbit or something of that nature, or maybe they'd save it up a little bit more and get a chocolate bar, or maybe they'd save it up a little bit more and they'd get a hamburger, whatever, milkshake, Dairy Queen, that was a big one. So our kids would have those 2 responsibilities. And that's when they were 2, 3, 4 years old. By the time they hit that 4 or 5 years old age, in came another one, and that would have been investments. It would have just been investments, and they would put money in here, and it would just go into here with no game plan for them. And then another one would get added, and that would eventually be the house. And then another one would get added, and that would be car. And then maybe they would add one for Lego, and they would add one for a bike, and they would add one for, and they just kept adding them. And so they might have 4 or 5 of these containers. By the time they got to that age, probably 10, 12, they had no longer getting paid in quarters and nickels and dimes. They were getting paid in dollar bills. And so then they moved to envelopes, and they tracked their money in envelopes. So my kids would learn to save, and that's the next one, track your savings and spending. And so they would save until they had enough money for what they wanted to buy. And then they would track the money they earned, how much they earned, but also when they spent money, they would track what and when and how much they spent it on. We'll get into that a little bit more. Set these here. So the other thing, so that was the other thing my kids learned. And then the other thing my kids learned early on, and I really preach teaching, is giving. And that's the tithing. That's the one, tithing for tithing. Their Jesus money, as my kids called it, but it can be for anything. It can be the Salvation Army kettle. It can be giving to, let's say, maybe say a grandparent passed away from a heart attack, and so as a memorial, you guys give money to the Heart and Stroke Foundation. Or maybe you support a child through one of the different organizations that do that. Or maybe there's the Samaritan's Purse boxes that maybe your kids take their money and they buy the pencils and socks and gloves and whatever, and they fill up the box, and then they give that away around Christmas, which then spends the year going around getting shipped around the world. So giving is in my perspective, especially because we live in the most affluent society in the world that has ever existed, giving needs to happen because we need to understand that what we have, based on a flip of the coin, that we are born in North America versus in Africa or in Indonesia or in, a rural village in the Philippines or in a slum in India. We've been born in the most affluent place. It doesn't matter where in North America you're born, you have more opportunity than the rest of the world. And so I want to make sure that my kids understand that they're a steward of what the opportunity as well as what the finance they get. And so those are the habits I want my kids to get. I want them to give regularly. I want to track their savings and spending regularly. I want them to learn to work and earn regularly. And I want them to put off wasting money. Don't be wasting money. Those are the things that I want. Now, we have opportunities because our kids want to get involved. This is Jared when he was young. There's some more pictures of the rest of the kids coming, but this is Jared when he was young. Now, this seminar is largely focused to parents, but and Brian Roller and I have talked several times, and he's shared at different seminars that I've done, and may chime in here again today or at different of these seminars online, or we've done them live as well. Where as a grandparent, he wants to know what he can do for his grandkids. And in the bottom left corner there is Grandpa. That's my wife's father and Jared, and they are very diligently painting this table. And they spend hours and hours being very careful and very diligent painting this table. And your children want to do stuff with Grandma and Grandpa. They want to work. They want to do stuff with Dad up there, rototilling in the top picture there. They want to pound nails, and that's a skill. All my kids do renovations. That'll come up later very quickly. My oldest son has bought a house, and he's done his own landscaping and his own renovating. I've helped him do some renovating in the downstairs family room and TV room now for him, and so we redid ceilings and lights and flooring and built-in wall units, and he's able to do those things on himself because he's developed skills that he started when he was 2 or 3 years old. And so our kids want to get involved. They want to develop work ethic. And it's just really our responsibility to foster that. And if we don't, they won't. If we push it off and if we let them go play video games or watch TV and not have this time, that will go away. And the unfortunate thing is if you let it go away, instead of helping them develop these skills throughout life, the boys are probably 8 and 9, and then Jared beside me there, likely 15. And we have rental properties, as I mentioned, and so we also have tools for taking care of rental properties. And so every spring the boys would, and they don't anymore, but they would find clients. I have other friends that have rental properties, neighbors, relatives, and they would go out and they would do that first spring clean on the yards, and they would do the aerating and the power raking, and they would do that work, and that paid really well, especially for a 9-year-old who can go out for 2 or 3 afternoons, a couple weekends, and pull in $500 for each for that time. Jared makes $1,000 and each boy makes $500 or something for working a number of hours. And so that's a lot of money that they can earn. And that really was a big jump to their spending and saving process as they grew up. Now, I'll tell a story a little bit later about that money and that work and delayed gratification when we get to it. And we may not get to it, but it's a good story even if I don't share it today. I'll share it in one of the courses and you'll hear it at some point. The top left picture is 2 boys, and they are pulling apart a rental bathroom. And we were redoing part of the basement. And they were renovating the bathroom. They did all sorts of drywall work and other stuff along with that. And so much so that actually my son was volunteering at a camp, a Christian camp. He's 17. And there was a young guy from college, I think from Japan, but he's been in North America most of his life now, in his early 20s, going to the college. And he was also volunteering out at this camp. And probably at 22 or 23, Brody, 17, was teaching him how to do drywall work, and here's how we cut drywall. Here's how we put drywall up. Here's how we screw it in. And he was teaching him to do drywall work at this place, this camp. And he's there with 20 other kids in their teens, late teens. And someone says, "Hey, we need somebody who can do some drywall work." And everyone's kind of like looking around the room going, "Drywall work? Who does that?" And Brody's like, "Yeah, I do drywall." And so it's like, "Okay, you got the drywall job." And so the work ethic will develop in some great opportunities for our kids, right? At 17, I didn't have construction opportunities when I was younger. So at 17, I wasn't doing drywall work. That came later out of necessity, out of buying rentals and getting into those type of things. So that's the first part of it. Those are the skills I want to be developing our kids. So when can we do it? Well, start early, start today. I don't really care how old your child is. My perspective is that when your child will not put the coin that you've just placed in their hand into their mouth, you can begin teaching them financial lessons. And so, as I mentioned, my children first piggy banks was tithing, Jesus money, and fun money. You really can't teach somebody to save unless they have a little outlet to spend a little bit, right? And so they have to enjoy the money they're making today, but there has to be delayed gratification as well. But there also has to be giving and appreciation for the money and the opportunity that we have. So Sunday school for most of us here and our children is a great opportunity to begin teaching lessons at any age, as soon as that money doesn't go in their hands. And the offering plate's coming by, or they have an offering in Sunday school, and you put that money in their hand and they put it in there. Now at that age, they haven't earned their own money, most likely. But the first opportunity to do that also means that you get to say, this money that I'm putting in your hand is going to go help feed poor people. That's all you have to say, right? Or it's going to go help a sick child somewhere, or it's going to go do something. It has a job. And so the lesson in that, all right, is that money is real, right? If they spend it, if they save it, if they count it, if they put it to work, it's also a tool. So if they can understand that you can take this real money and you can save it, and then you can put it to work, you're going to count it and you're going to save it, and then you're going to spend it by putting it to work, and it's a tool. So this money can go out and it can be part of building a church in Africa, or drilling a water well in Africa, or helping in an orphanage, or building a home for somebody in Haiti. These are all things that my children have experienced their money going towards, and quite intentionally. So they understand that money should be a tool. And so it's a privilege, but it's a tool. It's not just for us to buy $270 Nikes. Okay. The biggest lesson that my kids need to learn, they learn it early, and it's the most important lesson. The most important lesson for my kids that they've learned is that mom or dad will not give you money. Money does not grow on trees. It comes from dandelions. That's my line. I have never, that I'm aware of, given my children money, never an allowance, and they've never come by me. I've never had one of my kids say, Dad, can I get 20 bucks? My kids know better. There's never been an opportunity for my kids to say, could I get 20 bucks? Now, I provide my kids with stuff. So they get a pair of runners. It's not a $200, $270 pair of runners. But what it is a functional piece of footwear. If they want a better piece of footwear or a fancier pair of footwear or a better brand or model or color that costs more money, they need to foot the bill for that. My children have bought skis, bikes, guitars, a number of things where dad has paid for part of it because that's what living in my house requires. Because my kids don't get an allowance, but they do renovation projects. The top left corner was non-paid work, labor, skill development. The bottom right corner was them earning their money, and dad worked and dad paid the gas, but dad didn't get paid. They got paid. That was their opportunity to earn money. So I will always work with my kids, but I will never give them money. I will help them develop skills and provide opportunity to learn skills and opportunities to make money, but I will never give them money. And it starts when my kids are little. They want to help out. They want to be big people. They want to get involved, from vacuuming to baking or making a mess with sugar. I'm not sure when mom says, I need a pinch of sugar, if that handful of sugar is what we needed. But bottom left corner, there's mom with the kids, Callie and Jared, pounding nails. Callie's got the safety glasses on there. Always be safe. Jared's got his little helmet on. Always have to have a work helmet on. Be safe. Safety first. And so if we foster this, it becomes more. Okay. Using the right financial tools. So the first thing I want as a financial tool is money. Money is a financial tool, and a credit card is a financial tool. It is the wrong tool until they're much older. My kids shouldn't see a bank card or a credit card for their use until they're 18. That's the soonest they should see it. My kids didn't have their bank cards till they were 18. They asked mom for cash. Mom, I am going to need some cash. If they didn't have it at home in their envelope in the spending, so let's say they had cash for youth and for fun money and for books and for clothes, and they kept that in their envelopes. But once those envelopes got too fat, it was a longer item, like I'm saving for a snowboard or my car, or I'm saving for, in one of my boys, it's camera equipment. The other one, it's construction tools. One wants a new lens for his camera. One wants a new hammer. Okay. And they're both $500. And so my kids learn to buy good quality stuff, but that takes a lot longer to save for. And they can only get one. They can't get three and two or four in different colors. You get one hammer, and it's going to be a good one. You don't get a pink one, a blue one, a yellow one, and they're going to break tomorrow. Money is a tool. Money helps you to get more tools, better tools, bigger tools. And so if my kids needed more than the money they had in their fun money or in their youth money, or if they'd put some of their youth money into the bank already because it'd been growing, and sometimes they'll go to a youth event that might cost $200, and so they don't keep $200 in every envelope at home. Once they get $100 in there, they might transfer it to the bank. And so, but if in that case, they would say to mom, I've got the youth retreat this coming weekend. I need the $200 for it. Could you go to the bank and get me the cash, please? And so mom would go to the bank and get them the cash. My kids had no need to have a bank card that they could go buy a slush with and swipe and go get bottle pop and swipe the card, and go to McDonald's and swipe the card. And spending happens a lot faster, a lot less delayed gratification when you have to go ask mom for $20 of your money, because it's not going to be mom's money. Okay. So if that's what you do, if that's how you use money as a tool, and if your kids save and you're trying to create delayed gratification, then you need to be able to figure out what that money is for, where it goes, where it gets spent on, how much it is. And so we need a spreadsheet. Now, a spreadsheet is really simple. A spreadsheet is just anywhere where you can track basically these 5 things, right? When did you earn or spend the money? Tell me about it. So, I pulled some dandelions and I made 25 cents. Now I should go back to this. I didn't really tell the story. When my kids were little, what they got was a bucket. And every spring, as is currently, my yard seemed to erupt in these yellow things. And I never, it was a busy time. I had a lot of projects on the go with rental properties. And so spring was a busy time, and my dandelions always seemed to get away on me. And it seemed to be a good life lesson and teaching lesson. So I would give my kids buckets and I would say, go outside and pull those dandelion heads off. I'll give you a penny for each dandelion you pull. And so they go out there and they do that. And of course, they're different ages. Jared might come back in with like 150 dandelions. And I'm just going, oh my gosh, my yard is in bad shape. And so I'd count out the money, and then once I get to 80 or 100, and there's your dollar, and throw the rest away. And it's not about the money, it's about the lesson. And so child labor is alive and well in my family. And they would get the money that they earned. And luckily they were young enough not to count all the dandelions faster than me. Callie, of course, would go out and she would pick a dandelion and pick another dandelion and pick another dandelion, and then a butterfly would flitter by, and she would be off and done. And so she would get 4 or 5 or 10 cents or whatever it was. And fortunately, there was the opportunity for her to go out tomorrow and pick more dandelions, because they just seemed to keep growing. So the repetitive, consistent, continuous, intentional lessons are what we're looking for. And dandelions sure did provide that in my world. So if my kids went out and pulled dandelions and made their money, let's say they made 25 cents, in their world back then, a Timbit was 15 cents. And so they could buy their Timbit, which was their fun money. And then they could take their money, if that was Saturday, on Sunday or whatever, they could go and give their 10 cents at Sunday school, their Jesus money. And they could track this. And this could fit on the back of an envelope. This could fit on a piece of paper. This could go into an Excel spreadsheet. When my kids were fairly young, they had a grandmother who was a bookkeeper for businesses. And so my kids actually used full ledger sheets when they began doing their spreadsheets. So it's overkill. We have tithing, fund, bank, cash, which was 0. He owed no money. And car. Is there a date on this? This is my curiosity here. What year? 2015, maybe. So that was 10 years ago. Jared would have been 13. Jared was 13. 14. Tithe, fund, bank, cash, owing money, still 0. No borrowed, no money. And car. Now there were times where he owed money because mom was not able to get to the bank on time. And so he would say, I've got to go buy this thing and I need the money today. So can I get the $50 for that? And mom would say, okay, here's $50. We need to take it out of the bank and you owe it to me. And it had to go in his ledger. But it was very short term and he already had the money. And it was just a matter of the process that would cause this. But he had to track it and it was in his spreadsheet. At 14 years of age, 12 or 13 years of age, 12 or 13 years of age, he bought an Arizona drink for $4.73. He bought socks for himself at $10. Probably would have been special. Well, maybe. Socks he wanted because he worked at the ski hall and he liked warm socks. So we didn't buy him extra socks. He had socks. He wanted special ones. He earned $20 shoveling Anderson snow. He paid $60 for his GoPro. So he bought a GoPro camera. He bought GoPro parts. he was working a ski. He liked to film himself skiing. If he bought Taco Time or Pop, it's all in here. Anyways, at 13 or 14, he had $325 in April for a car. And by August, he had $510 for his car. And he tracked it. And his car was long-term savings, that long. His GoPro was this long. Car is going to be 4 years of savings. GoPro, probably a year of savings. Fun money in Arizona, Taco Time, those type of things. So one of the things that having multiple savings goal does is it teaches our kids and spreadsheets and tracking and saving money and delayed gratification. Also gives our kids timelines that they don't really develop early on. My kids understand early on, by 9 years old, my kids understand that they're saving for a car for the next 5 or 6 years. So they understand saving for 6 years for something. They're already saving for a house and investments. They understand about saving for 15 or 20 years for something. When they're 9 years old, they start thinking about a 15 to 20 year saving cycle, a 10-year saving cycle. A vacation might be a 2-year saving cycle, right? A new car might be a 2-year saving cycle. So my kids develop that timeline. Now it also comes into risk aversion, risk assessment, risk management that I'll talk about later. Because my kids also have the ability and the opportunity to transfer money back and forth between all of these containers, except for their, well, no, even their investments. Because when it comes to investing, I have a son who is into videography. I have a son who's into construction. They've been able to, with my permission and with planning, borrow money from their investments to put into their business. So my son earns his money in construction. So buying tools, if we justify the tools, can be important for him to earn money in his construction business. For my son who does photography, so that is wedding, graduation photography, he does video for businesses for creating commercials and advertising, managing websites and so forth. Buying the right camera equipment and having better camera equipment and to be able to do more things with it is an investment in his business. And so they've been able to borrow money when carefully planned out for their investments, from their investments into their business. And that's a risk assessment. Do you know how many, from my background in business, how important the financial skills of risk assessment and risk analysis are? Massive. And so your kids can start developing that by 10, 12, 14 years of age. They can have a college level education based on the experience in risk aversion, risk assessment, risk management. And quite literally, because the practical experience of doing it teaches more than reading the book about it. I know people that have taken college level courses on financial management, risk assessment, risk aversion, risk management, and failed miserably at it. So anyways, the spreadsheet is the tool that allows you to develop all of these skills. Without the spreadsheet, and it doesn't have to be fancy, without the spreadsheet, there's all those skill development opportunities are gone. They're wasted. Now, we can start young. I think that our kids should participate in the creativity of their piggy banks. There's opportunities to customize them. There's a couple businesses I've worked with that do that work, and you can order them. I've even had available websites for people in the past that they could order those if they wanted to. But customizing it's important. And so, as I mentioned before, this here, these drink containers, which I love dearly, the Kahlua one, of course, is gone. They don't make Kahlua anymore. They might in the States. If anyone's going down to the States and you get Kahlua, bring it back up for me. My kids would take an Avery label and they'd draw the picture and color the picture of whatever that was going to be. And we had some fancy ones. There were some cars, there was Lego blocks, there was some bikes and guitars. There was different drawings on all of these containers, different versions of Jesus money. long hair. This one doesn't seem to have any hair. The ones in pencil disappear faster. They seem to fade. This is a rugged cross. This one is definitely the old rugged cross. It's not the pretty cross. But it helped my kids identify. If I wrote tithing on here, it would mean nothing to my child who's 3 or 4 or 5 years old. They would not care. This is their container. This is their Jesus money. And so that matters to them. And so if we involve our kids creatively in things of that nature early on, and we're consistent with it, there's a lot of opportunities. Now, I mentioned most of these now have disappeared. I should have thought ahead 10 years that I'd be using these for teaching tools, and saved a few more of them. They all have nuts and bolts in them, or have over the years, and the labels have come off of them, and some have been thrown out and recycled. So these plastic ones are fully recyclable. I don't know about the metal ones. They might be, but they've moved on. And so I only have one left that my children have actually drawn on. Someday I'll have them with my grandchildren's pictures on them, but today I don't. So if we take advantage of starting our kids when they're really young and getting them using multiple piggy banks, it starts the process for spreadsheets, for planned spending, for delayed gratification. It creates opportunities to teach them risk assessment, risk analysis. Interestingly enough, I saw at a homeschooling conference. We homeschooled our kids, by the way, from kindergarten, I guess, right through to grade 10 for most of them. All of my kids transitioned at some point into the high school system, which was 2 blocks away from our house when they were in high school. And each for their own reasons. Most of school by high school goes to online if you're homeschooling anyways. So there's very little mom needed teaching. And by that age, the social aspect or the sports aspect or the accountability aspect of having a teacher that's not mom or dad helps out to some degree for each child, different things. And so my kids did transition to school for that. But the lessons that they learn simply by starting really young and giving them multiple reasons to save money is insurmountable. If you miss that, the things they won't be able to do or do as well or accomplish 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, you'll never know. But you take those opportunities away from them. You make it harder for them is basically what it comes down to. That really is the end of that first course, is the habits and all the things that those habits lead to, and developing the habits early. Okay. Now I want to talk about the things that I want my kids to learn about. When I start teaching more specific about my kids, there's things I want my kids to learn about money. So there's what I'm always trying to consistently, intentionally teach about money. So there's 6 things I want my kids to know about money. And first off, I've talked about most of them. Money is a tool. Mentioned that, gone through that. Money is real. Gone that one. I just had them out of order there, but that's the second one. You need your own money. Mom and dad isn't giving you the money. And the most important thing about you need your own money is you need all the lessons that come with earning your own money. The confidence, the drive, the motivation, the accomplishment. It's the self-esteem and self-worth. I'll throw in a story here on that one. So Logan works part-time within fast food industry, concession stands and McDonald's. He's not there anymore, but still does some concession stands and food truck stuff on occasion. And he's working with some people that are a little bit older than him. He was probably, he's 17 now. So he was 15 or 16 when this event took place. And he was working one evening and with a number of people that were 18 to 22. And so in working with them on occasion, if you're working at a greasy food truck or a concession stand and there's no pizza there, on occasion you don't feel like greasy fries anymore. You feel like a pizza. And so on a slow evening and they're working, some of them might get together and say, "Hey, let's get someone to go get us a pizza. Let's order in a pizza," something of that nature. So they group their money together and they'd get a pizza or something. On one of these occasions, it was suggested they should get a pizza, and Jared goes, Logan goes, "Yeah, I don't have any money for pizza tonight." And they're going, "What do you mean you don't have any money?" "I don't have any money for that." They're like, "Well, you've got 2 jobs. How can you not have any money?" "No, I have money. I don't have any money for pizza." And they're like, "That doesn't make any sense. How can you have money They're used to looking at their credit card balance or their bank account balance. And if they can swipe it and there's $20 left, they've got money. And he's like, well, I've got money. And he pulls up his phone, he opens up a spreadsheet, and he shows them his phone. And his phone has, the spreadsheet has camera equipment money, it has youth money, it has car money, it has investments in house, and it has clothes, and it has all these categories. And then he's got fun money, that's his category, and it's like $20. It's not his bank account, it's just a spreadsheet on his phone. And he says, see, I've got money and all these other things. I just don't have money. I've got a youth thing tomorrow night I'm gonna need $20 for, and I've only got $20 for fun money. And the youth money that he had in there was for a bigger youth event. It wasn't for going out and spending $20 at youth. They had some plan. He says, so I don't have money to buy a pizza tonight because I need to spend money on that tomorrow. And they're like, what is that? And he said, what do you mean? All those columns and those numbers and that money, what is that? And he's like, it's my spreadsheet. It's how I keep track of my money. You keep track of your money. Yeah, I keep track of the money that I make, and I keep track of what it has to do, and I keep track of how much I spend from that, so that at the bottom, I've always got a balance, and I know how much money that I have for anything I want to do or anything I'm planning on doing. How did you get that? Who made that? He goes, well, I made it. You made this? He's like, yeah. Well, who taught you to make that? Well, my dad. So you track all the money you make and you have all that money, but you don't have money for pizza. And he's like, yeah. That all seemed pretty normal to him. And so I won't tell you how much money he had, but it was 5 figures. And it was a significant amount of money. And he didn't have $20. So he had the self-discipline. Now, he could have taken $20 out of something else and put it into fun money. He could have spent $20. He had the money. I don't monitor it that closely. It's his money. It's his goals. It's his things that he wants to accomplish. I don't really care. As long as he leaves his investment money alone and his house money alone and his car money alone, with special permission, one of my children took money out of their car money. I'll tell that story maybe sometime. He has the ability to do the risk assessment and risk analysis and full-time risk management of spending his money on anything at all times at 15, and has the delayed gratification and the self-discipline to manage that money. That's what we talk about when I talk about financial management. That's what I talk about when I talk about wealth creation. So debt steals from you, and you need to plan for your spending. And that I just shared a story about that. Now, number 6, I'm not going to talk a lot about because it is the rest of your life teaching to your kids, but spending power increases as earning power increases. This is Life 101. It is everything that encompasses education, networking, employment, career development, savings, investing, real estate, Bitcoin. Like if you want to add anything into that, it is everything. The rest, saving for a wedding ring, it is everything. It is how do you get ahead in life and create wealth? You need number 5 to do it. You need to plan for your spending for number 6 to work. Your spending power increases as your earning power increases, and you need to have the responsibility with it, which means when you get a raise at work of $300 a month, you don't go buy a new car with a $300 monthly car payment, right? It's number 4 says that debt steals from you. So don't go get a car payment equal to your income. Because if you get laid off in 6 months, you don't have that car payment money anymore, right? Even if you find another job, it may not be at the same wage, and you may not have the money for that car payment. And so number 6 is everything for the rest of our life. But all of those things start with this. The very beginning first point is if we can teach our kids work ethic. Now, this here is a website my son has, First Outdoors, my oldest son. When COVID hit, he decided to create a brand, and he created a brand on Instagram, Facebook. It's called First Outdoors. It's on Instagram, and it's about being outdoors. He's an outdoors guy. He worked in the ski hill. He worked in Parks, Alberta, and he worked as a wildland firefighter, being tossed out of helicopters in the middle of a fire with a pump and a hose, and probably an axe and a shovel, up at Fort McMurray or wherever. And that was from the time he was 12 to the time he was 22. That he had a 10-year career with Alberta Parks and Wildlife Management. Because of his networking ability and work ethic. And they combined together to give him a 10-year career before he started his new career as a police officer at 23. At 22. He's 23 now. So he decided when COVID hit that outdoors was what he wanted to focus on. And so he just had different people writing blogs and posting their photography on his site. And those photographs were basically beautiful outdoors locations and places and things. And so he just created a clothing brand around that. And how he marketed that was having these photographs for people to click through and like and whatever. And so he began creating a brand for people who put outdoors first, right? Anyways, if we give our kids opportunities and we teach them the fundamentals through experience of money, of income tax. All my kids file their own income tax, and they have since they were 15. They all have worked a part-time job that somebody took taxes off of their paycheck, and they had to recover those. So they had to file their taxes to do it. And Dad didn't do it for them. Here's the website. Go sign up, put in your information. There's your T4. If you have any questions, ask, but you're doing it. And so they had to meet deadlines with that, and they had to file their taxes so that they could get that money back. And so if we help them to learn, to earn, to save, to do the investing stuff by 18, all my kids have to learn how to put their money to work investing. I don't manage their money for them. I help them through that process and the learning process. So much so that my oldest son saved and earned and invested to buy his first house at 22, putting 20% down on his first home. And it's not a dilapidated 2-bedroom house. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in a average neighborhood. If we help our kids to learn and experience these things and watch them grow as they get through this early process helped both my children there, and all 4 of them, but these are the only 2 photos. These are the cars for my other 2 kids came along after these photographs, after this slide was made. But all 4 of them, I have to build a slide with all 4 of them with their cars. All 4 of them have bought their first cars on their own, their second cars on their own. And so if we focus and teach our kids through these lessons, they're going to accomplish great things at a earlier age and at a higher level than if we just don't. And it's not that all of our kids are going to be living on the street if we don't. It's just that the world is getting tougher and tougher financially and economically. There's fewer good jobs out there. We're actually living, for the first time, our kids are in probably 200 years, probably in 200 years, I would say, our children are the first generation where their parents expect that they're going to have a more difficult time finding a career, earning money, buying a house, raising their family than we did. Every generation prior to us, and including prior to us, has raised their kids with the assumption, understanding, and knowing that if we just leave them be, if we just make sure they're not bad human beings, they are going to have more opportunity than us. They are going to do better than us. If they just play with their friends, go to school, get a part-time job, go to work, maybe go to college, they're going to buy a house, buy a car, buy a dishwasher, have kids, and not have any problems. I mean, they're going to have problems, but they're not going to have, right? First generation where we can't say that about our kids. And so we need to do more than our parents have done. Our parents never taught us much about money either, by the way. Your parents rarely sat down and talked to you about investing, about finance, about work ethic, right? Even if you're a dumb gas jockey guy, you'd end up working as a mechanic somewhere eventually, and you'd buy a house and you'd rent cheap, right? And you'd live fine. You'd get paid. You'd buy groceries. You'd pretty much be okay, right? If you put nothing into your career, you'd still have a job. You'd make money. You'd live, right? Can't say that today. It's not the same, and we don't have the opportunity to let our kids wing it. Just that doesn't exist anymore. Not if you want to have your kids living. We're the first generation where it's expected that most kids will live in their parents' house till they're 25 to 30 minimum. That's the minimum expectation. I was out of my parents' house when I was 18, 19. I maybe came back as I played, right? I left for 6 months. I came back for a month, took off skiing for a couple months and worked, came back for a month or two, went to college, maybe came back for a month, and then gone. So just for that, like, hey, I just sold my house, Mom. In fact, I did this at probably 30. I said, hey, Mom, we just sold the house and the condo. We're going to go stay at the condo for a week, but then we come back. We don't get possession for another week. Is it okay if we crash use you guys for a week? Yeah. Like, I mean, that's going to be fun. We got the grandkids, we got, babies, but it's expected that most kids will live with mom and dad till they're 30 at this point, unless mom and dad actually help them out financially. So we want to get started. We want to teach our kids intentionally, continuously, and ongoing. How do we do that? How do we start? Where do we start? When do we start? Well, I've got roughly formulated lessons in planning and teaching for kids at almost every age. I can share stories with you of my kids at all of these ages. And so from 2 to 6, I call it concepts. We want to just give our kids some concepts, and it's going to be hands-on. Foundations, age 5 to 10, they're actually going to do stuff. They actually have jobs to earn money, and they actually are going to save, and they're actually going to make decisions as to how much and where and when to save. And they're going to think and plan what they want to buy and when they want to buy it, and how they want to spend it. We want to create the foundation of those processes. And then number 3, practice and prep. From ages 10 to 16, my kids save for their first car and they buy it. And so they start doing that when they're 10, because they're also saving for a house and investments and for a car and for other things, Legos and snowboards and stuff, while they're still trying to save for a car. And so I make it really, really tough for my kids to save any money. I make it tough. I make them have to save for 17 different things at once. My kids break down their savings by percentages. They may have 5% for this and 10% for this and 15% for this. Cars are 35% of their money. Houses are 25%. Investing is 20%. So my kids, at the end of the day, by the time I've forced them to save 60% of the money they make for stuff that is 5 years down the road or more, they get 40% of their money to plan for what they want to spend it on, which would include snowboards, guitars, books, clothes, and so forth. And so when you look at going into a bank and saying, I want to buy a house, and they say, okay, 40% of your money can go towards debt. 35% or 33% can go towards housing costs, right? So if you got a car payment, it can only be 7 or 8%, right? Housing is up to 30% of your income. That's how much they allow. There's rules in life as well. Your mortgage can be up to 30% of your income, right? Now we know that 25 or 30% of your gross pay, at least, is taxes. So when 30% goes to taxes and 30% goes to housing, right? You've just got rid of 50 to 60% of your money right there. You don't even get to just having a house and living takes up 30 to 60, 50 to 60% of your money. You only get to decide what to do with half your money. So my kids learn that from the time they're 10 on. If I want to spend $500, I got to make $1,000 because I got the other things that I have to put this money towards. I got no choice. And then they begin putting it all to work. So it begins to make sense. Ages 15 to 18, right? They're now spending this money. They're buying the car. They're putting they're developing their careers, right? Whether they're going to go into construction or videography or policing or wildland firefighting or education. That's when they start making those maneuvers. What do I like? How do I do this? How much money can I expect to spend on my car, on my house, on my, and they start to, that kind of makes sense now. I understand that. Oh, taxes. Oh, that's a whole new thing, right? And then from the time they're 18 to 22, going to school, college, whatever, right? Now they've got to be ready to adult. And so they've got to be able to manage school and work and buying and fixing cars and saving for a house and looking for their first job. And so I want my kids by the time they're 18 to be prepped for all that. And I want them to make all of their financial mistakes when they're young. That's what I want out for my kids, right? And again, there's a lot of time to spend with your kids. You're spending it with them anyways. It's just one little thing that if you can intentionally incorporate this one lesson every week, every month into their world this whole time, you're going to make a lot of progress. 5 areas of training. So I'm always working with 5 main things, right? I want them to learn because these are the most important things. So giving, if you can't be generous and understand that you're stewarding somebody else's money and that you have to be responsible for, and the flip of a coin is giving you the opportunity that most won't have, right? There's 500 million people in North America out of 7 billion. You have, I don't know what that is, about a 8%, 7% chance of being in North America as a birth. So giving is important. It's the first thing we teach. Taxes, second thing we teach. Kids get dad tax. If they open up their first container of Smarties and they're 3 years old, dad gets the first one, dad tax. And so I want my kids to work through that. I want them to learn that. And then earning. Now, earning work ethic is the most important financial habit. It's not the most important thing. Giving and appreciating the opportunities we have and understanding taxes, because that's going to be the single biggest expense you have your entire life is taxes. Earning is the most important thing that you need to learn. You need to learn to do it well. And that is a life lesson that I teach my kids 23. We're still talking about how his career is going to develop and things of that nature. Planning the categories and how you spend and when you spend and risk assessment and risk analysis, that's a conversation till your kids are in their 20s. And that's education continuously. Piggy banks is important. I've talked about a number of piggy banks and when to use them. Of course, we talked about that pink piggy bank. Maybe when they're born, you get that pink piggy bank, and when grandmas and grandpas and aunties come over and they like to put $10 in the piggy bank or whatever. Eventually, though, your kids need to have their own piggy banks for money that they earn for things that they want, and they need lots of them. They need a whole bunch of them. All right, and you need to over stimulate their brains to a degree, or at least stimulate their brains. And then maybe you have different kinds, right? My kids have used these. Logan working for the food trucks. He doesn't spend his tips. He has a game he likes to do. He has a piggy bank about like this. And every year he'll take all of his tips for the year and he'll put it in this jar. And at the end of the year, he has a guessing game. Okay. So everybody in the family has to guess how much money I got in tips this year. And And then he counts it out, and the winner gets nothing. But it's his little game, and so then he uses this for his photography equipment, whether it's a lens or some sort of bracket or lighting. He has a light bar, so he has all these different things that he uses this money for, and it's in this piggy bank, and that money stays there till the end of the year. In which case he has a rough idea of what he's going to get money wise. He doesn't count it all year long either. He doesn't know what he's getting till it's a surprise to him as well. And at the end of the year, then he takes that and he puts it into whichever one of his categories he wants, but it has been his camera gear, his business. And so then he uses that. Now, my kids also go, once they start filling these things up and they're starting to get paid bills and stuff, they go to envelopes, and envelopes, they go to bank accounts and spreadsheets. Those tie in well together. And from there, then my kids will go to the high interest savings account typically. And from high interest savings accounts, we move our kids into investment dollars, into TFSA and RSP, and just a general investment account. Whether they start off buying stocks or GICs, my oldest son is more into that, and so he's done stocks, and he's received stock splits from Apple and Tesla, and he's bought some Bitcoin, and he does more research, and he has set himself up with in the past stocks so that he was getting paid a dividend every month of the year. So he looked at this might be too much information, but he looked at the X dates for these companies that were dividend paying companies. And so then he would get paid every month of the year. And those are things that he figured out on his own. I told him about what an X date was, generally speaking, and he went and figured out how to find the X date so that every month he got paid when it came to dividend stocks. And so my kids manage their own investments to a degree, and they will always, I hope. And my son has a plan for his first house, but that's going to become his first rental property, and he's got a quick path to paying the house off early. The goal is 5 or 6 or 7 years to have it completely paid off, and then that becomes the equity for his next house, and it is a rental property. The right piggy bank, right? If you have rental properties, if you have your TFSA, if you have gold buried in a coffee can in your backyard, I'd like to know where you live, but that can be your piggy bank if it's a storage for your wealth. Now, it's best, of course, if those piggy banks, when they get to become invested dollars, will earn money. That gold in the backyard is maybe a good hedge for inflation, but it would actually have proven to be quite valuable and well invested over the last 10 years. So it is not a bad idea necessarily to put gold in a coffee can in your backyard. Just remember where you put it and tell me where you live. So we need to learn to make sure that we are using our piggy banks well, but that our kids also understand the purpose and use of all these different piggy banks. So those are the 5 areas I'm always trying to teach when I'm teaching these 6 things. When I'm teaching, they need to plan for spending, right? We talk about spreadsheets, we talk about piggy banks, debt steals from you, right? Well, that's planned spending. If we can do a good job planning our spending and employing delayed gratification, right? We can manage our risk and avoid debt. Debt steals a lot of money from most of the world. And then that you need your own money, which is there again, work ethic. And so all these lessons come together. So we're well into the time that we talked about. But I'm going to continue on. This will become a bigger video that I'll share and make available online for those of you that have to go now. We've gotten through 2 of the courses. So the 3rd course is what do you need to get started? I'm going to talk about that. We're going to go into it now. And those first 2 courses might have blended together. They were pretty much, they just came from 2 different perspectives. This one here is if this is the first time you thought about teaching your kids about money and you're like, I don't know where to start. I don't even know if I know anything about money for my kids. My kids aren't old enough for me to teach them about money. Okay. We're going to go through this really quick. And we'll make this available, this whole seminar available to you again online so that you can come back and watch it. And so page 1, session 1. So these are actually in four weeks. one module per week. The first one is know what you know. That's module one. Know what your kids know. Module two. Where does the money come from? That's module three. And what to do with the money. Module four. There's a little bit of homework for each of these, and maybe even some work and action steps for each of these. So week one, know what you know. Okay. Um, know what you know. You may be in debt right now. You may have put your last vacation on your credit card. By now, you may know that that wasn't a great plan. The vacation was good. Coming back and having to pay for it wasn't a lot of fun, and might suck. And you might not be happy with that because you need a new fridge now, or a new furnace, or a new lawnmower, and there's no room on the credit card. You haven't paid it off yet. I thought that I would have paid off my credit cards by now. I thought that vacation would just take me a couple months to pay for, but then I needed A, B, C, D. My kids needed braces. My kids needed $270 Nikes, and I bought them for them. Um, my daughter Callie likes to travel. She loves to travel. Her mom likes to travel. In fact, they do the European travel together. My wife works at WestJet, so fortunately, she has some discounted abilities to travel. I don't love Europe. In my mind, what you see on TV when you're watching a movie of the Trevi Fountain and whatever, and a quiet little evening out on a cafe in a little Italian town. When you get there and there's 6,000 people standing around looking at the same square, it's not the same thing. I'm not interested. But my wife and my daughter love going to do those sort of things. So, Callie, when she was younger, and I'll bring a couple points together here. Callie loves travel. She's experienced it and has figured that out. My wife loves travel. She's figured it out. When Callie was 14, she was going to, and this is going to be longer now because it's recorded, so I'll tell more stories. Callie was homeschooling and part of a homeschool association, and one of the opportunities she had when she was coming up to 14 was a trip to Europe, a week and a half or 2 weeks or something to Europe, going to Italy and around that area. And so she was pretty excited about it. Mom, Dad, can I go to Italy? It's $4,000. And I'm like, no, you can't go to Italy. I mean, you can go to Italy. I'm not giving you $4,000 to go to Italy. I've never been to Italy. Mom's never been to Italy. So no, that's not happening. So she's like, what if I make the money to go to Italy? If you can make $4,000 in the next 6 months, go ahead. But every dollar that you make at your dance studio and babysitting for your regular customers has to get broken up into your investments, into your car, into your house, and into all your other categories, your fun money, your spending money, because those things won't go away. And so your travel portion of your money that you've set aside for travel is only about 10%. And so you've got to make about $40,000 to save $4,000. So yeah, if you can make $4,000 in your travel fund, go for it. So what if I do other things? What if I collect bottles and do other jobs? Well, okay. So she's learned, because in my house and our rules is you have your main jobs. Whatever you do, if you have regular clients for shoveling snow, if you have a regular babysitting job, that money is your main job, and it goes into all of your accounts, all of your planned spending. But if you have a new babysitting customer, or you go out because it's a snow day and it snows 12 feet, and you go and hit on a couple other new neighbors, and you ask them, do they want their snow shoveled? And they say, yeah. And you make a little extra money. That extra money, aside from tithing, which you have to do, that 10%, but the 90% can go into any category mix that you want. And so for her, travel would always be her go-to. So if she could make a little extra money, she could put it into her travel account. So she put on Facebook that she was collecting bottles through mom and dad's accounts, and of course friends, and all these people say, okay, we got bottles for you, whatever. She worked hard and looked for an extra pet sitting job and a little bit more babysitting. And so she made a little bit of extra money. So she started saving some money. So now she didn't have to save $40,000 because she was going to make extra money. So extra money, she started making a little extra money. So, 100 here, a couple hundred here, some more money there. And she kept saving and saving and saving. And I think to that point, she was maybe close to, at some point down the line, she maybe got close to halfway or a little bit better of that way there. And I'm gonna say it was $4,000. My math is fuzzy right now. I have to go back and look at her spreadsheet. But anyways, it was in that range. So she had made about half the money, maybe a little bit more. And so then she was listening. I didn't know that. She said, Dad, you said that we could move our money around from one category to another category. Risk assessment, risk analysis, risk management going on here. So if I wanted to, and I felt that the value of a Italy trip at 14 or 15 was worth the risk of taking $1,000 out of my, which means I might not be able to buy a car right when I turn 16. I might have to wait till I save up the rest of the money and I might be 17. Is it okay if I decide that the value of Italy is worth more than the value of a car at 16 and I borrow from myself money and I move it over there and then I pay it back and I save and I put that money back in there? Is that okay? Okay, well, sure. I'll go for that. We had a bit of a conversation about that, and she did the math in her head, and she did the risk assessment in her head. She did some analysis. She determined what her values were, and she said, I would like to do that. And so we did that for her. And it took her longer to buy a car. When she was 16, I wasn't driving her everywhere. She got her driver's license right away. And I said, well, we have the old red caravan minivan that is parked that I was going to get rid of. You can buy that from me for $1 and you can drive that. It's ugly. The heater barely works. We have cold winters in Medicine Hat. And you can drive that. That's your risk, is that you're driving an ugly old cold minivan for 8 months or a year for Italy. And so she that was worth it to her to do that. Now, here's an interesting thing. When she was about 12, she had travel on her account. Vacations really was more what it was. And it was more money for when we went to visit, we went camping or we went on a ski trip or we went to visit grandma and grandpa or uncles and aunts in Ontario. And so the kids would have a bit of money so they could spend it on vacation and have some fun. Sometimes they went to an amusement park and they did different things. And we taught our kids to pay for that stuff for themselves. And so they had to earn that money. And, I don't even feel guilty making them spend their money on those things over the years because I helped them find opportunities to earn the money. Sometimes there's a tinge of, am I a bad dad for making my kids pay for Callaway Park or part of Callaway Park on their own or going to the Stampede grounds and I'll buy this many rides, but anything more than that, you got to buy, right? And we brought snacks, so I'm not buying you a corn dog. If you want that, you got to buy it from your own money. But the lessons my kids learn from it were phenomenal. And so at 12, she probably had $100 in her vacation travel money. And she said, Dad, should I change my travel money? Am I saving too much money for travel? And I said, well, Callie, you're young and you don't do a lot of vacations, but you like to go on vacation. You've talked about places around the world that you like to go to someday. And I know your mom likes to travel. Now, we don't travel a lot. We got 4 kids, but we've done a couple little vacations. And as the kids have gotten older, we've done more travel, more vacations. But when your mom was young, when she was in college and before I knew her, before we got married, she had a group of 4 or 5 girls that like to travel together. They have gone to Mexico, and the one of her closest friends and her had gone to Hawaii, and her family traveled a lot when she was younger. And so they've done, down in the Florida area and different places. So your mom likes to travel. I assume maybe you're going to like to travel. And so right now, $100 might seem like a lot of money, but if you save right now and it's in your budget and you're saving for everything else, and you save $200 or $300 or $500 or $1,000, and when you're 18 or 19, and you have a couple friends that say, hey, I'd like to go to Mexico, or let's go to Hawaii together, or let's wherever, whatever. Let's go. And the big thing now is concerts. So it's like Taylor Swift concerts or so forth. When you have friends that say, I'd like to do those things, would you like to have the money already to do that? Because you don't want to go and put it on a credit card and have debt when you get back from it. So if you think that you would like to do all those travel things later in life, then there's no limit to how much your travel fund can have in it. You, as long as you're meeting all your other goals, you're putting your money away for a house, for investing, for a car, all these things, you can't, you can't, like as long as you're meeting all those things, then just keep letting your travel money grow. It's fine. So fast forward then a little bit. She goes to Italy. Now, she didn't have any debt paying $4,000 to go to Italy. She had borrowed money from herself, but all that really was changing her goals. Wasn't creating debt. She changed her goal and said, I would rather go to Italy than drive a car at 16, a fancy car, a nice car, or something. Her case ended up being a Nissan Altima, which she loved for a while. But Italy had more value to her, enough value that she would drive an ugly red minivan for a year while she continued saving to buy a nice car that she thought was cute. So she did her risk assessment, her risk analysis, and then she managed that risk, and she did the vacation. But let's go back to this now. Have you put a vacation on credit card? Did you have the money? Did you have to pay it off? Has anybody ever done that? Oh, I think a lot of people have. I've taught my daughter at 12 not to do that. And she has hit Taylor Swift, and she has been in Australia for a concert. She had a friend that had moved to Australia, go to Bible camp or Bible college, Cape and Ray or something, I don't know. But so she went to Australia for 2 weeks to go to a concert and spend 2 weeks with her friend in Australia because she loves travel. And her friend was there going to school. So it's like, hey, there's like our favorite artist is there, and you're there, and I'm coming. So what do you know about money? Have you made mistakes about money that you wish your kids didn't make, right? You can teach it to them. I did. You don't need to know it all, by the way. That's the key thing. You can make mistakes and know from a negative perspective. I don't know everything about money, but if your kids are fairly young, you can start today knowing that a piggy bank is a good idea. Working is probably a pretty good idea. Earning your own money is probably a pretty good idea. Putting your money away for later on in life is probably a pretty good idea. Having a car is a good idea, so saving for it would be great. Not putting your vacations on a credit card, probably a good idea. So there's things that you know that then you can use your mind to go back and say, hey, what can I do creatively every month, every week for my kids to start developing work ethic and learning? Well, they're 3. Give them a bucket. It's spring. Pull some dandelions, pay them, have them count the money, right? We're now learning some math, right? We're going to break that money into different things. We now decide what our values are. What do we value more? My oldest son, Jared, valued for a period of time. What do we call those? Scooters. I took him to the skateboard park because that's where he wanted to go. We hung out there, and he had his scooter, and he scooted around, and all the big kids were going around. He was pretty young, and he had a couple guys a little bit closer to his age with him try their scooters, which were fancy $400 or $500 scooters. And so they were fast, and he could get way more air off the jumps. And so he was like, Dad, I need a new scooter, because he was driving a used scooter that we had got probably off of a garage sale or something. And so he saved and saved, and the scooter became the goal. And he bought his scooter. He shopped around. He went on the internet. We drove 3 hours to Calgary to get his specialized scooter, and he bought it. And he probably rode it for 3 months. That was right around the time that he would have been 12, that he got his volunteering / job / career for Parks Alberta, beginning by volunteering at a ski hill locally. That was another story, but when he went into the ski industry, because he spent 10 years in the ski industry then, uh, the existence of his scooter disappeared. And he now will say to you, if you asked him, his worst investment, his worst money spent, his biggest regret was that scooter. He could have lived for the summer with the garbage that he was riding because he never rode it again after that. So we need to help our kids experience those things. And so if you start today and help your kids all those little ways, they'll begin to make their own mistakes, but they'll learn life lessons and they'll learn skills and they'll learn to make assessments and choices. They'll know what their values are very quickly. When they earn the money to buy something, they will determine quite quickly if it's worth the money, the risk, the assessment. And so, know where you can learn. If you don't know it, everything I'm talking about is online. It's on the internet somewhere. I don't think you'll learn it. I don't think your kids will learn it just by reading it or hearing it. I think they have to experience it. I think if you're very interested in having your kids having the ability to teach your kids more, you can learn it in order to pass it on by doing some research and learning it. Best learning happens by experience, in my perspective. And so where can you find it? Well, it's all online, right? You can Google almost anything and get 10 different things that will begin to teach you parts of, at least, of what you might want to begin teaching your kids. The biggest thing is have a plan. Be intentional, be consistent, start today, no matter where your kids are or what their ages are. So next week would be the module screen. You would see what your kids know. We're going to peek at that real quick. Does age matter? Again, I don't think so. My kids started with these things when they were very young. They started saving for, tithing and taxes, and then a house, and then a car, and then everything else. They earned their money very early. I helped them find odd jobs. By the time they were 7 or 8, they were pulling weeds for the neighbor. By the time they're 9, they're cutting grass and shoveling snow, babysitting. My daughter, by the time she was 11 or 12, was helping teach dance at a little dance studio, pet sitting. And so there's lots of opportunities for our kids to earn money. As your kids get older, you'll know things, and your kids will learn things that if you involve them in your world, and those can become potential career things. And they will find things outside of what you know, and they'll develop their own interests, and those things can become career things. But you can help them with those other interests in areas that you don't know. And here's an example. Sometimes teaching your kids lessons so they know what they don't want to do is as valuable as teaching them lessons for what they do want to do. But my son was, 10, and I had a friend who had a greenhouse. And so I wanted him to experience a reason to stay in school and to find something he enjoyed doing. And so I asked if we could come by and help him when he was ripping out the 10,000 or 7,000 or whatever it is, cucumber plants that they had in their greenhouse. And so they got these bags that all of the plants are sitting on to get the nutrients. And so you got to pull out the bags and the vines, and they put them in these carts, and they're on wheels, and you're bent over, and it's hot. And even though they have all the doors open at that point, the windows open, and you're getting scratched up. And then we planted the whole greenhouse. And so then you're putting all these bags, you got to carry on putting down all these bags, and you got to put in the water pick, and you got to put the plant on it. And you're bent over and up and down and bent over, moving all these plants. And not a lot of fun, not at all. And he stuck it out, and he did it for a number of hours. On 2 separate occasions, ripping them out and then planting. And guaranteed, simply because I knew somebody and asked for a favor, and I think he got paid $100 or something to help for, as a hey, you did a great job. He learned that that's not something he ever wanted to do again, ever. And he will pay attention in school, and he'll go to school and he'll look for something that he wants to do and he'll start working at it. Now, the flip side of it is I knew somebody who owned and managed a ski hill, and I arranged for it didn't happen because of me. And that's another story I'll tell. I think I'll get to it. I arranged for him to have an opportunity to begin volunteering at a ski hill, which turned into a job, which turned into a career. 10 years, 12 to 22. I'll get to that story, how that happened, because it falls under something different. But age doesn't matter. Okay. What your kids know about work ethic is going to be 80% or more of their financial skill set ever. Making the money is the first key. Okay. Communicate about money. That's the next part. Ask your kids what they know about money. Right. Say, do you know how this credit card works? Do you know what this is? Do you know what it does? No, it's just money. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Right. You'll say to your kids, I don't have any money with me. I can't buy you that ice cream. Well, you've got your wallet that has your credit card, right? You've got money with you. I've heard that a lot. And so communicate how and where you spend your money. Communicate about your job, about your changes in your career. Your kids need to know more about your job than they do about your money, right? When you get a new job, it comes with new responsibilities. It comes with more hours. It comes with having to go get some more education and do a couple courses. Do a safety course, or dad has to do a accounting course, or dad has to do a Excel course, or let your kids know that you're developing your career. Make them understand it, right? Or we also have to work a part-time job because this job doesn't pay as much as dad needs to pay the bills, because the bills are a lot. We have to pay for the car, we have to pay for the electric, we have to pay for the house, we have to pay for groceries, right? You don't have to use exact numbers, but you can say groceries costs this much. To live in this house costs half of our money. They should know that. As a general concept, they should know that you have to save money to buy the house, and then you have to pay 35% of your money for your mortgage and your lights and your taxes and your insurance, right? So they should have that understanding. Talk about money. Are your kids on track? I don't know. It depends who you're comparing them to. It's pretty easy to be on track to the average kid because everyone's failing right now. Families are failing right now. Now, there's statistics out there where somewhere between 50 and 70, or some say 80% of families are, well, probably 50% of families. I think one of the statistics shows in multiple studies that 50% of families are $200 away from not being able to meet all their financial obligations each month, which might mean simply, I can't pay my phone bill this month because I made $200 less at my part-time. I had to take a day off and I lost $200 at work of work money. So I can't pay the cell phone bill this month. Or if they had a $500 expense, they couldn't cover it without creating more debt, right? Like they'd have to use a credit card. They don't have the money in the bank for a car repair, as an example. That's half the population in North America. The next 30% are slightly better off, but how does the statistic go? They're one paycheck away from not being able to meet their obligations. So if they lost their job today, next week, they wouldn't be able to pay their rent. Like that's just the way it is. If I lost my job tomorrow and it was June 1st, I could pay June 1st money with my last paycheck. July 1st, we don't have money for rent. That's, I think, 80% of the population. Now, that being said, those families have equity, a lot of them. Probably, I think they talk about maybe half of the population has equity in their home. Now, we know that there's a huge portion of the population that rents, right? But some of the renters have investments, but there's people that have equity, but it's tied up. So not everybody has negative equity, but it's huge. Not everybody can't pay their bills, but it's getting close. Many can't pay their bills as it is, right? And so are your kids on track? Well, most families are getting failing grades right now. Most people considered financially stable are basically failing. And so I don't want my kids to be on track, right? I want them to be on a different track. And so don't compare your kids to other kids. Maybe don't even compare them to each other. But unless it's a positive thing, like, hey, look, your older brother had bought his car at 16. He saved this much money. You are almost there. Like, you're doing so good. I think if you keep working hard in a year and a half, when you turn 16, you will also be able to buy your car. And we should start talking about what kind of cars you like. And then, the next one is jobs that they have, right? Most of my kids, as an example, we pushed all four of our kids into lifeguarding. Um, all of them did their lifeguarding training up to a certain point. One of them didn't finish his bronze something, his national lifeguarding or something, did his bronze cross or bronze medallion, whichever the first one was. But then he had his career already set in the ski industry and in Alberta parks, and which continued on to be parks management stuff and wildland firefighting. And that was 10 years of his life. So he did not pursue the last part of his swimming lessons because a lifeguard is probably one of the highest paid jobs for teenagers. So my daughter ended up a lifeguard, and she's a supervisor part or 3/4 of time with good seniority in the pools in Medicine Hat where we live. And so she's doing very well lifeguarding. The other two boys, I think, have taken their lifeguarding, but they're not doing it yet. They haven't taken jobs. The one is so busy doing other stuff that he applied once, but his schedule didn't allow him to fit it in. And so I think he's at the point now where he's applying again and he will lifeguard. I think that's the discussion we've had. The other one is doing construction. And so he did all of his lifeguarding stuff, but may lifeguard if it works out for him to be a lifeguard on the weekends, but he's basically going to be doing construction, which pays about the same for him as lifeguarding, but gives him way more hours. And he's doing his journeyman carpentry, what do they call it, apprenticeship program. And so he's earning the hours towards becoming a journeyman. And so that will obviously pay significantly more than lifeguarding over a career. And so he's building a career versus lifeguarding. But all four of my kids pursued the track of lifeguarding, and we pushed them into it because we wanted to give them the best opportunity to earn money that we could. And so we paid for their lifeguarding courses and their swim courses. And so, but it was hard work. It was early mornings. It was long hours, lots of swimming. It kept them in shape. And they all had to teach kids how to swim. And so it was good interaction and good learning to teach. And so only one of them put it to work, but it was a good investment on our part because of all the other things that lifeguarding and the process of becoming a lifeguard teaches. And so, are your kids on track? Depends what track you're trying to put them on. And so don't compare them to each other unless it's beneficial. None of our kids have turned out the same. They've all had different opportunities and yet the same opportunities. And they've all found their own path, but they're all on a different track than the average kid. That's just a given. And they know it as the story with the spreadsheet and Logan's friends at work, where they all were down to the last $30 or $100 or whatever, and they were buying a pizza and he didn't have money for it, but he had significantly more money than they did, but he had goals, right? He was accomplishing stuff. He was on a different track than they were. Where does the money come from? Now, this really is the question about when do your kids work, earn the money? Do you give them allowance? Do you not give them allowance? Do you just give them money? The reason that I'm actually in the Nazarene church teaching this stuff is because Glenview Nazarene Medicine Hat was looking for the opportunity. A group of people in the church wanted to get back to, after COVID, doing seminar events for the general public that they had done previous to COVID and all the world shutting down. And so they were looking to get that going again. And there was a different group of people in the church, and they had to learn the whole process of what are we going to do, how are we going to market it, who are we going to reach, all that kind of stuff. And so I was asked and I offered to do this seminar to help parents begin exploring how to teach your kids financial management skills. And because one of my friends that's in that church, part of that church, um, who introduced me to that group, felt that he needed to help his kids and grandkids do better because he was one of those dads that didn't give his kids allowance. He had 2 daughters, but he was a dad that his daughters didn't have to ask him, "Hey, Dad, can I get $20? Can I get $20? Hey, I'm going out tonight. Can I get $20?" And he might say, "Oh, you went out last night. I gave you $20." He wasn't that dad. He says he was worse than that dad. He said, my kids would say, "Well, I'm going out." And he'd say, "Do you need $20?" Like he'd already be handing them money. "Do you need $20? You probably take $20 too, right?" And he would just the next day, "Oh, we're going out to the mall. Do you need 20? Do you need $20? Here's $20." So he said he was worse than the dad who gave in and gave the $20 out when his kids asked for it. He just handed it over. And so he didn't do allowance and he didn't wait for his kids to ask for money. He just handed it out. But what do you do? What do you do currently with your kids? Where does the money come from for your kids right now? If your kids are 14, 15, 16, how do they get money? Now here's the conversation I just want to have around allowance. And it's not a good or bad, but if allowance comes with responsibility, and I mentioned a comment earlier today where if your kids know they get their allowance, even if they don't take out the garbage, and even if you have to hound them to put their laundry away and have to hound them to put the dishes away or wash the dishes and cut the grass, whatever the responsibilities that are tied to an allowance go. But if they've learned that they don't really have to do those things consistently before they get their allowance, and they can kind of slough it off and somebody else will pick up the slack if they don't, then it's probably not working as a teaching tool for them. And they're probably not gaining much more out of it than just spending your money. My only cautious statement in here is if you're going to change what you do and how you do money with your kids, if they do get allowance, and even if there's responsibilities tied to it, and even if there's an expectation of responsibilities that may or may not happen, your kids will work differently and have a different value to earning money that's not from you. Whether it's pulling somebody else's weeds, cutting somebody else's grass, there's more responsibility in having to go to the neighbors and cut the grass because he said, "Hey, can you come over Saturday afternoon and cut the grass?" It has to be done Saturday afternoon because that's what he asked. Or it has to be communicated with, "I have something Saturday afternoon. Can I do it Friday afternoon after school instead?" There has to be communication. There has to be skill sets learned to deal with working for somebody else. If you want to change that, the thing is, it's not your kid's fault. You're the one who set up that system, that program. And so I don't recommend just going cold turkey with it. I recommend the same thing with when your kids get older and doing 7 different activities. They got piano, they got guitar, they got dance, they've got volleyball, they've got youth group, they've got all these things on the go. As they get older, they need to do fewer and more specialized things because of time, because of cost, because of developing an expertise. It's great for kids to explore a number of different things as they grow. It's the same thing if you say to your kids, "Okay, well, you got to quit soccer or gymnastics. You can't do both, right? Right now, that's it." It's like, okay, no. Next year we're only doing one, right? You got to decide which one you like better. You've got the rest of this year or the rest of this season or whatever to kind of decide which one do you think you'd like to do more, because you're going to have to pick. You can't do both. You can't do those and do music. So you can't do, gymnastics and soccer and piano. You're going to have to pick one. Or you can't do gymnastics, soccer, piano, and dance. You have to pick between sports or theatrical stuff, or you have to pick between dance and music and soccer and gymnastics, right? We don't want our kids to have to go cold turkey and make decisions because we've put them into this doing everything or getting things for nothing or whatever. And you have to introduce it with conversations, right? "Hey, I think it's time that you start learning. Dad wants to help you learn how to manage money, and that requires you to work. And so I've got a few ideas, but let's find out what kind of things you enjoy doing. Right now, we can easily probably, look at the ideas, shoveling snow and cutting grass, but if babysitting, fixing computer, there's a million things that you can do to help your kids begin finding employment opportunities, work opportunities. Like I said, I did a lot, still do, for my kids to help them find opportunities to earn money. I'd rather that than give them money. And that's just on me. Where does the money come from? Does it matter? What to do with the money? And of course, remember, these are courses that I teach in more in-depth. It's coaching time, it's conversation time, and we'll talk actually about your child and about what you can do with them. Like, we'll have those conversations, we'll work through them with you, we'll give you homework. And so this is just a conversation about what the course is. If you're starting late, that's fine. It'll take some time to right the ship. If there's bad habits, that's the worst thing. If there's no habits, that's okay. We can teach habits. They're easier to teach on a clean slate than they are on somebody who's already got the habit of getting money, getting allowance, doing nothing, getting $20 every time they walk out the door, right? So starting younger means there's less of that in place, and there's more opportunity to teach off of a clean slate. Starting with piggy banks, right? Reasons to earn money, reasons to is that's what this is. If they've got goals, they have reasons to save money, they've got reasons to work. And incentive, right? And they take a lot of pride in it. They take a lot of pride in it. So that's the end of this seminar. Concepts. Right? What are the habits developed for financial skills? That's what it's about. Are you ready to teach your kids about money and shape their thoughts, their actions, their spending, saving, and investing habits? So these courses are available. These courses are available to people to register for, and there'll be links sent out, and there'll be group coaching, there'll be group training, there'll be video training. There could be, depending on which course, there could be a podcast to watch or something that I share from different places, just to help you in that process and further guide you along. And so I appreciate again your time for being here. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the courses and in the coaching time. This has been, this is what I do now. This is what I have a passion for, because I know that our kids need the help, they need the guidance to do better than we've done, to have more opportunity than we've had. And that's not where most kids are today. So again, thank you guys very much.